Good morning, good afternoon. Thanks for attending the Oracle CloudWorld Highlights for Integration and Digital Assistant webinar. I'm Jürgen Kress, part of the Oracle Product Management team. In case you missed one of our webcasts, on-demand recordings are available at Oracle Video Hub, including presentation for download. In today's presentation, we will present you the highlights from Oracle CloudWorld, which I choose. With me is Nathan Angstadt, Senior Product Manager for Oracle Integration. Nathan, good morning.
Good morning, Jürgen.
So you are going to present robotic process automation. What is RPA?
So RPA is a new automation tool that we're delivering with Oracle Integration that is going to provide customers another option, another way to go ahead and automate their end-to-end business processes. And it's particularly tackles those sticky problems where the applications you're integrating with either don't have APIs or it's not really convenient to use them at the given moment.
So it's part of Oracle Integration?
It is absolutely part of Oracle Integration. It is
Cool.
just another capability, another automation tool that we're adding to our complete automation platform.
Wonderful, thank you. And with us is Ronald. Grant, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Jürgen. Hi, everybody.
So you are going to present a demo that is built based on conversational AI.
Yes, this was probably one of our big announcements at Oracle World, and both in the healthcare, and Larry Ellison mentioned it in his keynote that we are building a digital assistant for healthcare called Oracle Clinical Digital Assistant, which uses the Oracle Digital Assistant platform, but also generative AI and a whole other cool technology where we're really pushing the boundaries and eventually delivering on the promise of voice and conversational applications.
So Larry talked in his keynote a lot about generative AI. What is it?
Yeah, well, we could have a whole session on this. So using the wonders, the magic, the black box of AI to generate information and content, which is quite incredible. And we'll talk about in our digital assistant, for example, we can listen to a doctor's and our clinicians and a patient's conversation, and from that voice transcript, we can generate the clinical notes that the doctor would normally have to send off to be manually transcribed. That can be done automatically. So that's the kind of cool stuff we're doing now.
So we will see and believe.
Absolutely, it's there. You can touch it. It's real.
Cool. Please pay attention to the Oracle Safe Harbor statement, as we will show you products which are still on the roadmap and not GA. Please blog and tweet only about services and functionality which is available today. Quick housekeeping, please feel free to post your questions via the conference Q&A tool anytime. At the end of the webcast, we will answer them. Slides will be available at Video Hub and at the community website. Please share your feedback via the Zoom survey at the end of the webcast. So for today's agenda, I will kick off the webcast with some quick announcements, and then I will hand over to Grant for the amazing digital assistant demo, and then Nathan will show us RPA. And at the end, we will answer your questions. So the free certification campaign is extended from August 31st to the end of the month. If you have not signed up and took the opportunity to take one of our new integration or digital assistant exams, both of the exams are brand new. Please make sure that you sign up immediately. Make sure you're registered for the community, attend one of the hands-on training or the guided learning paths, and please register for the assessment as soon as possible. On the integration side, we continue to offer the hands-on training, the 3-day hands-on classes for SaaS consultants and integration experts to build a first proof of concept or demo. Upcoming schedules include South America in October, US and Canada also in October, and Asia in November. For additional training schedules, please see the community newsletter. And we updated the community website with all material, including today's presentation. On the digital assistant side, we continue to offer the hands-on training, which is a 1-day class for developers and consultants and UI designers. And upcoming schedules include September 28th in Spanish, South American time zone, and October 19th in Portuguese. For registration, please see the website or read the community newsletter. Also, the website is updated. Quick update on the customer side. We are going to run the next customer success webcast to connect SaaS in specific customer experience on October 11th. So please join us for this webcast. And if you missed one of our webinars from the certain pillars, they are all available on demand. We also recorded last week live from CloudWorld, the quarterly product update webcast, which will be available at the end of the week as an on-demand webcast. For further details, please subscribe to the customer newsletter. On the digital assistant side, we are going to host the product update webcast tomorrow. Robbie Jones and myself will update you on the latest features and functionality. For registration and all details, please see the customer newsletter. Today's webcast is recorded and will be available on demand, including presentation slides at Oracle Video Hub. With that short introduction, over to you, Grant.
Thank you, Jürgen. Let me share my screen and get started here. Okay, so thanks everybody for attending. This is a session we were kind of giving a sneak preview to at Oracle World to a few partners, and we really wanted to show where our Oracle Digital Assistant is pushing the boundaries, in particular this new product that's been delivered as part of our healthcare industry, which is the Oracle Clinical Digital Assistant. And I should probably say that whilst I'm talking about Oracle Clinical Digital Assistant or Oracle Digital Assistant as a platform, actually Oracle integration sits at the back of this as well. So it's hidden there doing the heavy lifting to all the APIs in the back of the electronic healthcare system, previously called Cerner. You might be aware that Oracle had an acquisition, $28 billion acquisition of a healthcare company, Cerner, and that's our digital assistants kind of front and center in that new strategy. I sometimes, pause before I put the slide up. Not sure whether I might upset people, but I think if we're being honest, we haven't quite reached the promises of conversational AI. I mean, we've all maybe seen bots, or some of us might have used it and got the, I'm sorry, I didn't understand, please rephrase your question. And that's, I think the bar had been set relatively low, and in many cases, we've even failed to pass that bar. And that's been frustrating for me as part of the platform team. But at last, we were kind of unleashed about a year ago, where we were asked, basically said, okay, you think you guys are going to be the experts at building digital assistants. We need this clinical digital assistant to be the best in class, exemplar. And it's going to go up to Larry. And a couple of months ago that did, and he gave it his blessing. And that's hence it was revealed at Oracle World. So just as an outline, there's actually, I touched on it in the intro, there's two features that have been developed separately. One which is what we call the ambient mode. An ambient or listening mode was where, your doctor and you are having a discussion, and the information is summarized into to clinical notes where it would normally be manually transcribed. That's one side, and the other side is the part that my team have been developing, which is the primary clinical digital assistant, which allows a clinician to be, it can be hands-free, it can be eyes-free, but access all the information that's required around a patient from the mobile device. And the mobile device, because they can be on the move, but also because with having the microphone, they can just speak and ask. And this is important for clinicians because they, if they're in a one-to-one, they might not want to be looking at the screen or down at their phone. And equally, they might be in a situation where their hands are sterile, or they cannot touch a device for whatever other reasons. So voice first is the mantra that we've really been following. And very much it reflects what actually happens in the clinician's environment, where they do have an assistant who's bringing up records and information there as well. And that's obviously the primary goal of this, is to be a great assistant for clinicians. But where it's exciting for me and others in the Oracle Digital Assistant team is that we believe this is now where the bar should be set. And I say that in two facets. One is the experience for the customer. So the fact that it's very much driven by the user experience, that it's it's exactly based around the user's needs, it's the quality of what we built, but also it's exemplar in terms of how we've built this. And a lot of my team have been developing over the years best practices around conversational AI, and we get to load all those best practices into this application, and it becomes an exemplar experience or example for others as well. So let me go into the demo. What I've done is I've recorded a short video. Now, with this video, normally there would be voice of me speaking, and you see the text, or the speech to text working, and equally the bot responds with voice, although you can turn that off. I've turned both off purely so I can talk over the demo as well. But let me go through and we'll show. So at the start of his day, the clinician gets a dashboard which shows, the most important information. It's the appointments that are coming up, if there are any to-dos that are ready, or if there's any results for any patients you're about to see. So it's a kind of smart dashboard. But the first thing the clinician wants to do is ask, hey, have I got any free time today? When can I go for lunch? However they want to ask, and that will pull up their records and summarize that information. They also find they're overbooked, so checking overbookings as well. I showed at the beginning that they could have to-dos. So here, this is using a machine learning entities where out of that sentence, it's extracting what is the topic. Fill out the school physical form and creating a requested that. So it's an assistant there. The next thing we're going to do is look at appointments. Where does the clinician need to be? Who's he seeing next? And we see we've got our first Grace Wolf here. And we can either say a number 1, or we can actually say the name open, Grace Wolf. And we get the patient summary. So this is the essential information around the patient. But the clinician can then look at the summary and then look at the particular information they need to get. So if it's their last note, and obviously we've got to understand the types of notes, whether it's the last note, the first note, the most recent notes. These are all things in our natural language processing. I'll stop the video for a second here as well. We're going to look in vitals, and in this example, I've just said, look, show me all vitals. But of course, I could have said, show me the blood pressure. And of course, there's some great challenges here in the medical domain, because pulse oximetry is maybe a phrase that natural language models or speech recognition might normally struggle with, but we have created models specific to this domain as well, which is kind of important for us. So I can ask for all vitals, or I can ask for a specific vital. In this case, hey, show me the blood pressure, and we can bring up the details of that patient's trend for the blood pressure. Let's go into another couple of things we can pull up. And this is actually going against real healthcare APIs. That's where we got the integration cloud in place. So we can pull in from the Cerner backend the results. And then we go into something a little bit more complex. I'll pause here for a second. Problem list. So when you get to see a clinician, there'll be a history of problems related to being diagnosed this visit, or you can have ongoing. So this is your kind of list of issues that you as a patient have. And again, if you think about the challenges here with the language, I'm going to add a new problem to the list. And if I, add, hey, I'd like to add hyperlipidemia to the problem list, we have to be able to extract that hyperlipidemia is the really important thing, because that's the problem, that's a medical problem. And then we go and look up, because there's different types of hyperlipidemia, the exact code there is, because these are all these problems or issues might actually relate to a whole bunch of standard codes in the back end. So we've got to understand medical terms like, hey, hyperlipidemia, and be able to extract that. And then, as I say, in this case, we end up doing a lookup in the back end to see what the correct code for that is. There we go. So I'm going to add a new problem to the list in this case. And again, I could put it in a whole sentence, but here, and there's a number of different types. It's the exact codes, and I can decide to add that either for this visit or as an ongoing visit. And you now see there's now 6 problems on the list, so that's been added. So again, we're accessing the patient record, and of course, we're doing it in lots of different ways. There's lots of different types of patient record, and I can ask it very explicitly, like, show me her allergies. And I can ask it more implied way is she likely to have a reaction to latex, for example, or penicillin? And again, our natural language have to understand all those different ways the doctor might ask, but also to be able to extract that, hey, penicillin is the important term that we have to go and look up in the back end. And what we cannot do is simply have a list of medications or things you could be allergic to, because as you might guess, there are 1,000,001 different things, and it can be expressed in different ways. Are they allergic to dust? Are they allergic to household dust or cat dander, anything like that? So those are different ways of essentially expressing the same allergy. But we have created trained-specific machine learning entities that will understand exactly what a medical problem is or a medical allergy as well. So now I kept this in because I thought this was kind of funny. It was actually a little mistake on my part. As you can detect, I've got an accent, and the ASR, the speech recognition, misheard me. What I did say was, what was her dose of metformin? Metformin is a type of drug, but it misheard. So hey, no big deal. These things happen. But what we can do is, it says, well, look, actually, I think you're looking at another patient here called metformin. No, it's not. So I can immediately close or say close or go back, and we go back to where we were on the problem list before. And that's important to have these recovery paths. So there I get it right this time. Our dose of metformin, which is a drug, and we pull this up from the medication table there. And we're looking at ways in which, again, you can ask very explicit questions about, her medication list, or is she on metformin? But there's obviously lots of very fine-grained questions you could ask, like, when did they start metformin, or what was the first dosage that they had, or who gave the prescription for metformin? And of course, those of you who have worked with digital assistant before realize you have to kind of identify your use cases beforehand, and that becomes more and more complicated. But using large language models, we're working on ways in which those very specific questions are things that we can understand without having to train many intents to address each of the ways that the doctor might ask. So the last thing we're going to do, our last 2 things, and again, this is to explain the complexity here. We're going to order medication. Now, I'm going to order Jardian's 10 milligrams oral tablet. I could say twice a day. I could say BID, which is how doctors say twice a day. It's Latin. I could say refills 3, dosage 90. The point being is, in a sentence like order Jardian's 10 milligrams, refills 3, dosage 90, I've got twice a day. I've got 5 or 6 different numbers. And of course, it's imperative that we get 10 is the milligrams, 2 is the number of times a day, 90 is the refills, that we don't get it the wrong way around. And again, that seems blatantly obvious to us as humans, but is actually pretty difficult. But again, we've used some smart AI that we can work out which number goes with which element of the order. And in fact, you'll notice that when we go to the summary screen, we summarize the various dosage or numbers there, and the doctor can either click or change. I mean, that's something the doctor can just tap, or they can use their voice. But here we've changed the refills and the dosage, and they sign the order. And the last thing is that for this patient, they might want to set up a reminder, and this is a reminder is associated with the patient's record, so that you can say, hey, create a reminder, call her in a week, see how she's tolerating the medication. And there you'll see we've worked out called to see how tolerating the medication is the subject of the sentence, and 1 week from now is calculated from the point I recorded the video there. So that's a brief run through of the Oracle Clinical Digital Assistant that we've demonstrated at Oracle CloudWorld and at the healthcare conference. Let me just carry on with a few more slides here. One of the things, just to outline that in leading this wonderful team of people who have been building this, there's, why are we making it better than any other project? Well, there's a kind of 3 messages that I kind of hammer home to the team, is that the conversational experience, the user experience is exemplar. We're always thinking about what the clinician needs. And it's kind of a nice use case for us because none of us are experts as being doctors. So we don't get to have our ideas and say, well, this is what I would do. All the time we're going to the clinicians and saying, what do you need to do your job? So we set up a lot of testing with clinicians so that we understand exactly how their job, their day-to-day work is, and what are those obstacles and where can we make things easier. We also work with them to make sure the natural language understanding, because I don't know how a doctor would order medication. I can make a guess, but of course they can use terminology and phraseology that we didn't think of. So we work very closely to ensure the model's trained as well. I don't think it's any surprise on any software project if you get the right team. And one thing we've seen in the conversational projects is that it's not always people who have the experience, and conversational AI is maybe relatively new. So having the right team, the right skills, and the right processes. And I emphasize right skills because, as Jürgen said, we're currently doing free training. And one of the things that my team have all done is they've all taken the training and all passed the certification exam. I'm sure they would have anyway without, but it's good to show that, yes, that training is the kind of thing that people need. And the last thing is the best practices. And this is stuff that we've been documenting in the ODA documentation for the last couple of years, which is, if you're going to build a natural language processing model, this is the way you should do it. These are the steps you should take. This is the type of testing you should do. This is how you modularize it. This is how you document it and define your standards. So again, this is all stuff that if you're working on ODA projects, you can do this. There's nothing here I'm showing you that you couldn't build yourself, given the right motivation. Now, given an idea of what this looks like as a development team, so there's 7, 8, if you could, me. I work kind of part-time as managing it and also as the NLP person. But we work in 4-week sprints. There's about 17 what we call skills, which are separate functional areas. So that could include allergies, problem lists, reports, medications, etc. The visual flow designer allows us to build the flow of the conversations of 120 of those, running against real backends with all the security and challenges, especially in the medical domain around there. Currently about 10,000 automated tests. We hope to be probably 10 times that, at least before we go to production. And generative AI and LLM, we've already got some of that stuff in place. The big one is, as I say, the ambient listening and generating medical notes based on the conversation the clinicians had. But we're using generative AI and large language models in lots of different places, sometimes in the more obvious places like summarizing patient information. Other times we're doing it to help and aid the understanding where we hit some real complex challenges in trying to work out exactly what the user's meaning. So we're using LLMs in a number of different ways. The wonderful thing about the digital assistant, it has all the challenges of conversational AI, but with medical domain, we get some cool stuff as well. And it's fun to work on this. So show my last patient. Does that mean the patient you've just seen? Does it mean the patient who's the last in the day? These are generic challenges that we all have, and it's great being able to tackle these. Dates is a real interesting one. Set a reminder for an X-ray in 3 weeks. your reminders in 3 weeks' time. Set a reminder to scan at 32 weeks will not mean your reminder comes up in 32 weeks' time. It's the 32-week gestation period for your patient. So again, really interesting challenges. And as I mentioned, it's got a vocabulary all of its own. BID means twice a day, QID means 4 times a day, and we've got to make sure our models understand all this as well. And again, we're training a language model to understand, ordering an MRI scan is a very different process to ordering a blood test. But to the language model, they're almost identical. As I want to order then a 3-letter acronym. And we've got to work out the differences, because ordering an MRI will involve extra information, which part of the body, whereas ordering a blood test will also involve, but doesn't require what part of the body. So interesting challenges. So why do we have this session? The thing that I wanted to share with you all is Oracle Digital Assistant has found itself really at the center of Oracle's healthcare strategy, which is fantastic. And if you Google on Oracle Clinical Digital Assistant, you'll see there was a huge amount of stories over the past week as it was announced at Oracle World. So it's super exciting to be working on this. It's super exciting to eventually prove how great both conversational AI and the Oracle Digital Assistant platform can be, because quite frankly, some of the implementations have been underwhelming, and I feel at last we can show really what we can do with the platform. And if this gives you some sort of excitement, if you're in the medical domain, or even if not, but to show what you can do with digital assistants. Thank you for listening. I've probably used up bang on my time there, Jürgen. If there's some Q&A, I'll maybe deal with those, and I'll hang on till the end.
Yeah, Grant, thanks for the wonderful presentation and the recorded demo. So you showed a digital assistant for healthcare. Can the same platform be used to build also digital assistants for other industry, let's say retail banking?
Absolutely anything. Absolutely anything. It's we already have the digital assistant underpinning things like HCM, etc. But whatever your use case, it can sit on it.
So the platform allows you to build your own digital assistant?
Absolutely, yes. So from the Oracle Digital Assistant platform, you can build your pizza bot, your medical bot, your banking bot, your self-service, customer service bot.
That's cool. And we also offer pre-built bots, part of the SaaS services.
That's correct. So probably HCM is probably the one we talk about most, but there are others in expenses and ERP, etc. as well. Wonderful.
And to summarize it, we are looking forward that you share your best practices, lessons learned, how to build such a cool bot.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you connect with me or following Twitter or something, you'll get a whole bunch of pointers to all that stuff, as well as I push it out through Jürgen as well.
And your team is also sharing on the blog a ton of information, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Grant. Next over to Nathan. Nathan, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Jürgen. How are you doing? Good morning to everybody out there. Let me go ahead and share my screen.
So it's early morning for you.
It's not that early.
But you're brave enough to do a live demo, aren't you?
Yeah, of course. What else?
Cool. Kick it off.
All right. So a couple slides first. So welcome everybody. And this here. All right. So as the guys mentioned, we're just back from Oracle CloudWorld, where we shared progress on our robotic process automation offering that we're delivering. And we frankly got some tremendous response and interest from both our customers and our partners. So I want to take a moment to share a quick highlight of that. And so let's start by setting the context of how RPA fits within our portfolio, and more importantly, how we believe RPA will be valuable for our customers. So briefly, we're positioning RPA as yet another tool within our automation toolbox. We already have a very complete automation platform, including application integration to connect systems of record and data, process automation to engage employees through tasks and workflows, decision services, to manage rules and policies, AI services such as document understanding, B2B and file server, analytics, and of course, user experiences, including Visual Builder and our digital assistant. So in addition to that, we're adding RPA as another option, another tool to help our customers successfully automate end-to-end business processes for those use cases where the applications that they're trying to automate either don't have APIs or it's temporarily not convenient to access those APIs. Something else that we see with customers who already have an RPA practice is that these RPA initiatives tend to be siloed. So for instance, it's not really uncommon to find application integration and process automation in one team and an RPA Center of Excellence team somewhere else. So this, of course, leads to some challenges such as lack of governance across automation initiatives. There's no centralized lifecycle management or observability. And of course, no sharing of resources across those teams who are essentially trying to achieve the same objective, that is to automate end-to-end business processes. So our objectives for RPA are to further round out our automation portfolio and thereby eliminate the need for customers to go elsewhere for these capabilities. And then second is to eliminate these automation silos by providing RPA as a first-class citizen within a complete automation ecosystem. And so enough of the slides. What I'd like to do now is just go ahead and do a demo. I'll show you what this actually looks like. Let me move this thing here. Okay. All right, so on the left-hand side here, we have Oracle integration. On the right-hand side, we have a Fusion app, so specifically ERP Cloud. And what we want to do is we want to create a project whereby we're going to automate one of our purchase order business processes. So I've already created that project. Hopefully you're already using projects. Projects is a great place. And today when you use projects, you'll see all of your integration assets within the projects. But going forward, we're thinking of projects as more of a solution-focused space to unify the composition, the lifecycle management, and the observability across all of our various automation tools. So once we release RPA, RPA will also be a first-class citizen of project. And then over time, you'll see tasks and workflows and decision services, all of our automation tools becoming part of the project, giving you that solution-focused space. So in here, we see all of our integration components and our RPA components. One of the first things we do, of course, when we're working on an integration is we create a connection. And so we have the same concept in RPA. I've already created a connection here. And again, what this allows us to do is it allows us to externalize the endpoint and the credentials for the application that we're going to connect to. A little bit different from application integration is we're not using these connections for our application adapters that might connect to Salesforce or HCM or other applications like that. We're using this connection information to drive the user interface, as RPA wants to do, to drive that user interface to find which URL we're going to connect to and which credentials we're going to use when we connect to that. But other than that, it's exactly the same concept. So let's start by creating an RPA flow. And let's say as part of this process automation that we want to, well, just as it says there, we want to get a supplier name from a purchase order. And for any number of reasons, we want to do this using RPA. So we'll create the flow. And when we open this flow, what we'll see here is a canvas that looks very similar to integration. And we want to make it such that if you know how to use integration, the same exact concepts apply to RPA flow. So if you know how to use one, you automatically know how to use the other. And it's the case for any of these automation components, we need to define a user interface. In other words, what are the inputs? And the inputs here are going to be the PO number. So we'll pass this robot a purchase order number, and we'll expect the robot to return to us a supplier name. Oops. Yep, there we go. Now, we need to now teach the robot how to interact with this application. And of course, the first step is going to be, of course, opening a browser page and navigating to a particular URL. We could, of course, type the URL in here, but that would tightly bind that URL to this code. What would be a better practice is to use the connection that we have and simply drag and drop the URL field from that connection over here. And again, what this does is this externalizes for us that connection so that if we move this robot from test to production, I don't have to come back in here and change the code. course, the first step in using this application is we have to log in. I could go ahead and use our low-code activities, for instance, to enter some text for the username and enter some more text for the password, and then do this click element. But what we want to do is we want to move to some more intent-based activities. And so what I'm really trying to do here is I'm trying to log in. And so we provide an explicit login activity. Over time, we'll provide all different types of intent-based activities for different types of forms, different types of tables, and we'll allow customers to go ahead and create their own intent-based activities as well. So now that I'm in this login activity, I need to configure it. Take the username, of course, from the connection that we defined, as well as the password. And now we need to teach the robot where it is these usernames and passwords need to go. And so for that, we use our targeting tool. And so we'll select the browser tab that we want, which is the sign-on page. And as you can see, as we move the cursor around, we're selecting the various fields. And we want the username field here. We'll do the exact same thing for our password field. And finally, for whatever this submit target is, it's going to be the sign-in button, and we'll use that there. So we have our login activity created, and as you can see, instead of having a bunch of fine-grained activities in here, we have this one nice intent-based activity just to hold all the login information. So I'm going to go ahead and log into Fusion Apps because we're kind of at that point. And we could go ahead and continue to build out this flow using our low-code activities. That would get kind of tedious. So what we want to do is we want to use a recorder. Now, our recorder, most recorders in RPA, what you'll notice is you have to start the recorder and you have to start from scratch. With our recorder, you can start pretty much anywhere within the flow. So if you already have a flow that's kind of, you start it like we have here, I can start recording directly from there. If I wanted to go ahead and insert some things, some activities, I could do that easily as well. So we'll start a recorder from the login. I'm going to say that we want to target this particular page, and we'll provide some instructions on how to start using our recorder. Now, our recorder is very similar to most, and that is that I just simply use the application as I normally would. The big difference with our recorder is instead of just going ahead and using the application and at the end just having the recorder spit out all the code, we're going to engage the developer in this recording process so that they can provide us some hints to make it easier for us to generate the code that they really want. And we'll see that here in a second. So in this case here, we're going to say we're going to generate a new activity called click procurement. We provide some recommended actions given the fact that we've clicked on an anchor link, and we'll give you an option to say, once we record this step, do you actually want to execute it on the browser or do you not want to do that? In this case here, we do want to do that. So we'll click save, and we'll see that we've recorded our step over here, and we've now advanced to the procurement page. We'll do the same thing here for click on purchase orders. We'll save that. We'll give ERP Cloud a little bit of time to bring up the next menu items. And there we are. And now we'll click on this task button over here to bring up a menu item of different things that we can do here. And we'll click on this here to manage orders, to go ahead and manage our orders. And now we'll bring up our order management page. So at this point in time, we want to go ahead and enter an order number. And so we can enter this order number, US 165969. We want to use this as a part of our recording. And again, in most traditional recorders, we're going to teach the robot to go look for this particular purchase order number. That's probably not what we want, right? What we really want is we want to teach the robot to go look for the purchase order number that's passed in as part of the input. Yes, we will use this as a recording option. And we also use this as a potential test value later on when we're testing our robot. So we'll go ahead and save that. And we'll now click our search button. And we'll save that. And again, all along, we're generating the code over here. And now we need to go ahead and copy the supplier name. So we'll click here. Now you see here, the recommended action is to click the element. That's probably not what we want. What we really want to do is we want to get the text from that. We also see up here that the name is a little bit mangled. So we'll just change this to say get supplier name. And we don't want to just get the text, but we want to get the text and do something specific with that. And that is to put that in the supplier name output field. So we can now save this and we can stop our recording, and our recording is done. This recording is complete. This can be executed in a test or production environment. We don't have to go back through this code and change things like, well, let's go ahead and parameterize all the literal values that we did, or let's go ahead and make sure that we clicked on an element that it didn't do a click, that it actually did a get text. We could, of course, if we wanted to, drill down into each one of these elements and see all of the details, what the targeting is, the fact that we actually are using the input, the PO number for the input here. We provide validation for each one of these steps. So automatically, as part of this recording, we'll create validation steps to ensure that before we actually enter that order number, that we're on the right page, we actually have access to the order number field. And we also generate a nice user-friendly message. So instead of, if this robot were to fail, instead of getting some cryptic message like XPath something, 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 we'll actually send to you a really nice user-friendly message saying, hey, we just couldn't find the order text. You could, of course, change this if you want. But none of this is necessary because, again, everything is all done here, ready to go. Another nice thing that we provide is that we actually save all of the targets themselves. So let's just say that as part of this use case, that we needed to click on the search button multiple times. Each time that you click on that search button, the first time we'll actually record that as a target, but each subsequent time, what we'll do is we'll say, you know what, you've already clicked on this button. Would you like to simply just reuse that target? And if you do that, what it does is that all of those clicks on that search button will all be kind of using the exact same target, meaning that, let's say that down the road, this search button moves, or for whatever reason, this search button is no longer working for us. Instead of us having to look through all of the code, finding all of those different places where I use the search button and changing each one of those, I can simply come to this global list of targets here, change the target, and automatically fix the code everywhere. So we're done with our robot flow. So let's go ahead and save that. Now, I won't go into a lot of detail about how we execute these, but we have this notion of environment groups. So in this case here, we've created an environment group called finance team. And what this allows us to do is it allows us to segment the physical virtual machines that are going to run these robots into various teams. So for instance, I could have a finance team, an HR team, and each one of those teams will ensure that the computing resources that they need and want are reserved for them and secure to them. So in this case here, what I can do is I say I just want to add an environment group for this robot, and I'll select my finance team. And now we can go ahead and activate this robot. And we'll put this into debug mode and activate it. Now, we don't really allow you to call the robots directly. That may seem like an intuitive thing to do, but it's really not a great practice. And the reason is because oftentimes RPA is used kind of as a tactical or a temporary type of automation strategy. And so if I bind all of my process flows and my applications, if I bind all of those directly to the robot, and then later on, we want more robustness, or we want to have more scalability in that particular function, we would want to change that to an API. We now need to go change all of our downstream applications to move from the robot to the API. So instead, what we're doing is we're going to make it very easy for you to bring those robots into an integration. And so let's say that we have an integration called get supplier name. And I've created a schedule integration just to make it simple for us. Of course, within the integration, we have access to all of the various activities, the application adapters that we'd normally have in integration. One of the new things that we have now here is an activity called robot flow. And I can select that and I can say, let's call this get supplier name. And just like you're using any kind of adapter, we're going to go ahead and go out and look for business objects or whatever it is that the adapter is working against. In this case here, we're working against RPA robots. And so we'll go out and discover the RPA robots that are part of this project. We'll select that. We'll get a quick summary here. And then again, just like any other kind of invoke, what we'll do is we'll create an invoke activity and we'll create a map. I can go into the mapper and I can start mapping the data to my, for instance, purchase order number. So in this case here, we're just going to hard code this because we don't really have we have this as a scheduled integration. So we'll just use the same 165.969. That's our sample data. We have our map. And now we have our integration that's going to invoke that RPA flow exactly the same way as it would invoke any one of our application adapters. Now, the other nice thing about putting these robots inside the integration is it allows me the opportunity to create hybrid integration. So an integration that can both invoke robots as well as APIs. So I don't have any other connections set up here, but let's just do something simple. Let's just say that we want to take the result and put it in a logger. And so we'll get a logger configuration. We can come over here to our get supplier name response, and we can grab our supplier name and drag and drop that over to there. So one last thing we need to do, of course, is to configure our business identifier, and we'll just use the start time to differentiate this instance from other instances. And we now have our integration completed. So let me go ahead and activate this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to activate this. And once it's activated, I'm going to go ahead and run it. And we'll see our robot come up here. And then we'll take a little bit of look at the at our observability. But while that's happening, maybe it's a good time to grab some questions, Jürgen.
Yep, there are a couple of questions, Nathan. First of the question is, when is it going to be available?
Yeah, so we are already starting an early adopter program, starting to onboard both customers and partners. And we're starting to kind of triage those early adopter requests to find out what makes sense for us and what makes sense for our customers. We expect to start onboarding our first customers probably towards the end of the year, the first part of next year.
Cool. If partners want to participate in the beta program, please complete the Webcast survey that you would like to participate, write it in the feedback form, and we will reach out to you. Next question is from Hanunan. He would like to know if there are in HCM use cases for RPA.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, there are. One of our early adopter customers absolutely has a use case for RPA. What they want to do is they want to programmatically update a certain employee evaluation criteria. Apparently, there's no API to do that. And so they want to be able to do a bulk update of those. One of the nice things about the way that we're seamlessly integrating both integration and RPA is that oftentimes in RPA world, you will process a file of input data and we'll have the robots themselves process that file. That may or may not be the best practice, right? In our case, you could do that if you wanted to, but the other thing you could do is integration already has some fairly extensive file processing capabilities. So for instance, we could go ahead and say that we're going to receive an event from our file server. We're going to bring in that file, maybe a CSV file of employees and all of the ratings that they need to get updated. And then we're going to use the stage file to iterate over that file, each row, and then for each row, we'll ultimately end up calling our robots. And so, yes, there's definitely use cases within HCM.
So nice comment from Namit, cool demo on RPA. Congratulations, Nathan. And next question from Gary is any information about the pricing?
Yeah, so we haven't finalized our pricing, but it will definitely be some sort of consumption-based pricing model. It's very likely to be exactly what we use for integration. But again, don't hold me to that. But that's our current thinking, which, by the way, will make this RPA offering extremely cost-effective.
Okay. And Arvin would like to know, compared to other RPA tools like Automation Anywhere and UiPath, is the automation integrated with machine learning models and AI?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny thing. This is one of the problems when talking with RPA is because the RPA vendors have totally disrupted our language around automation. Oftentimes when RPA vendors talk about machine learning and computer vision and AI and all of this, what they're often talking about are things like document, what we would call in our world is document understanding. So OCR and intelligent document recognition. So they have kind of combined those capabilities underneath the umbrella term of RPA. Certainly, we have those capabilities within our portfolio. When we talk about RPA, we're strictly talking about the technology that's using the user interface to perform the integration. Certainly, because we already have a much more complete automation portfolio, including the ability to engage human beings through tasks, the ability to leverage AI services. We can certainly incorporate those as part of your overall automation flow. It just won't be technically handled by the RPA. From a functional standpoint, we're doing the exact same thing. In fact, we're probably actually doing it quite a bit better because of the fact that we're actually leveraging each one of those tools more appropriately.
Okay. Ritesh would like to know if you can use smart recordings to test functionalities of quarterly patches, so basically do testing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I get this question all the time. It's not something we really thought about. Don't really see any reason why not. So we're getting questions about using this both for testing. So we oftentimes think about it from a functional standpoint, using automation and RPA for functional use cases. But we get a lot of questions about for testing, and we also get a lot of questions about setup. So apparently it's a fairly extensive process to move, for instance, Fusion apps from test to production. There's an awful lot of configuration changes that need to be done. And a lot of customers are talking to us about, hey, wouldn't it be great if we can actually use RPA to automate those configuration changes? So absolutely.
Next question is from Thibaut. He would like to know if RPA only works with web applications or also with desktop applications and spreadsheets.
Yep, great question. So our initial January release will only work with web-based applications and file-based patterns. So we'll definitely be able to work with files like CSV files, Excel files, and the such. And of course, those files will be, based on the use case, we'll either say you should use those files directly within the robot, or maybe it's more appropriate to use those files within the integration flow. Once we get our first release out, we will start to broaden the various applications that we support. So Windows-based applications, Citrix-based applications, Halapi green screen applications, and such.
Okay, and will it support also unattended flows?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, I have a quick demo here. How much time do we have? Yeah, we have a little bit of time. I have a quick demo here where we're actually using RPA as part of, so we have unattended robots, which are, I assume that you said attended robots, yeah? Or did you say unattended?
Both attended and unattended.
Yeah, so unattended is exactly what we just saw, right? That is the robot kind of in service of the enterprise. It's running in the data center, and its real purpose is to act as a proxy to an API. Attendant robots, however, are robots that are actually running on my desktop, right? And really serving as a personal productivity tool. A lot of the RPA vendors will provide a forms builder where you can build out a form to say, here's the information that I want to fill out for my particular robot request, such as the purchase order number and such. And then when you submit that form, it'll go ahead and execute that robot on the desktop. We're actually taking a bit of a different approach, and what we think is going to be a much more superior approach. And that is instead of actually building out individual forms, is to leverage our digital assistant. And so that makes it such that with that digital assistant, you could ask for a request. Now, maybe the request goes back as digital assistants do today. It makes some API calls and it delivers the results in the digital assistant, as you saw Grant showing you there. Or it could also be the case that the digital assistant is programmed to say that given a particular request, instead of going back and presenting the results in the digital assistant, they're just going to run a robot on my desktop and present those results to me in the context of my desktop. So let's show an example of that.
Houston, for a family of 4, my budget is $600K.
So here we have our digital assistant that's running on my desktop. I ask it for a question to say, hey, show me some homes. And what it'll do is it'll now, instead of just bring me back a list of homes, it'll actually now go out and show me the homes.
Homes for one in Seattle with a view, budget is $500K.
So it'll go ahead and show me those homes in the context of the application that I'm using. So absolutely, we have support for both attended and unattended robots.
Cool. So I can switch back to my screen?
Absolutely.
That was a wonderful demo. Thank you very much, Nathan. So you saw the stars of Oracle with Grant and the clinical healthcare bot, really making use of conversational AI and generating forms on the fly. And you saw a preview of Oracle robotic process automation, which is part of Oracle integration. You can use RPA where no APIs are available. If you do have an API, then Oracle integration is the tool of choice that you can connect with the adapters, technology or SaaS adapters. To wrap up today's call, if you're not yet a member in the partner communities, please register. For developers, register for the digital assistant content, and consultants for the integration content. Attend the hands-on bootcamps for integration and digital assistant and the guided learning process. And it's your last opportunity to take the integration and digital assistant implementation assessment free of charge. All presentations are published at the community websites. Membership is required. So we still have a couple of questions on the digital assistant side. Grant, are you still with us?
I am. Let's see.
So what's the release schedule for the digital assistant? You showed us the healthcare bot, and what's the release schedule for the platform?
Yeah, so let's start the platform. Oracle Digital Assistant has been around for about 7 years or so. It comes out on a every second month cadence in terms of releases. The clinical digital assistant we've been under development for about a year now, and we're going into beta towards the end of the year, and we're going for a production release in the new year.
Wonderful, thank you very much. And what kind of bots are available for the SaaS applications for which SaaS pillars?
Oh, so I think as I mentioned, HCM, ERP, expenses, there's a whole bunch, and I guess we probably, if anyone's interested in the out-of-the-box digital assistants that we have for SaaS, they can probably contact you, Jürgen, to funnel those requests to Joe.
Yeah, and there is a page on the documentation side. So if you Google Oracle Digital Assistant documentation, you will end up at the Get Started page, and there you see a link to Digital Assistant and skills. Those are the pre-built solutions for Oracle SaaS. Or in the lower right corner, there's a little icon blinking. Some eyes are looking at you. That's Arti, and you can ask Arti any question about Digital Assistant. Grant, any other questions that you answered you would like to highlight?
No, I think we covered all this quickly. Actually, if there's any really useful stuff. Someone asked, yeah, it's a good question. It's like mini chat GPT. Yes, in terms of it's conversational and it knows things and it answers. But of course, there's the whole philosophical debate about, does chat GPT really know what it's talking about? And most of the time it looks pretty damn sure like it knows what it's talking about. It's incredible, but equally you're not totally in control. So we use large language models and generative AI in a very controlled manner, primarily because of the kind of domain that we're working in with the healthcare, that you kind of don't want your digital assistant just off answering any old question that you might choose to ask it. So we have a mix of the more, in quotes, traditional intent base, which is you define all the use cases the bot supports. So you control what the bot can do, blended with generative AI when it makes sense to use it.
Cool, thank you. Nathan, anything you want to add from your side?
Yeah, no, look, we're really excited about this RPA offering. If you, for your own business, or you have customers who are interested in RPA, please reach out to us, and we'd be happy to take a look at what you have and see if there's a good match to get you engaged in an early adopter program.
Wonderful. Gentlemen, congratulations to Nathan and Grant for winning the Star of the Show award. It was a wonderful CloudWorld with many exciting new features, and it was great that you brought some of those to today's webcast. Besides that, Oracle launched Oracle Database 23 with VectorDB, and we also launched, for example, in integration an adapter SDK that allows partners to build own adapters and publish and commercialize them in the cloud marketplace. So Nathan and Grant, thank you very much for today's presentation. Wonderful job. If you have further questions, feel free to reach out to the integration team or the digital assistant team across the countries, and make use of the resources for integration and digital assistant. So thank you for attending. Please complete the online survey, and we are looking forward to see you again on October 31st. Dankeschön.